I'm Dr. Paul Van Valen, and it's day 20 for me of being predominantly indoors. I've been out of the house to walk, to bike ride, and to do just a wee little bit of shopping. And it's gonna be that way for a while. If I cough during this presentation, it's because I have some allergies, and there's nothing that can be done about that, except I'm gonna pop a cough drop. Modeling how you have to take care of yourself, hopefully, as we move forward. Anger is considered a normal stage of grief, and we are all experiencing some element of grief and loss in this season. I've worked with people for 40 years, helping them deal with anger. Sometimes it's excessive, sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes when people are in the sorrow stage of grief, it is useful to find their anger, because anger is an energizing emotion. When I was not feeling well, and I've had several periods of life where that's been the case, one of my favorite phrases for me was better mad than sad. And anger will mobilize. It has a clear purpose. You have anger because there are things that we should get angry about. And you have your list. And I would encourage you to think about what that list is. One of the challenges I'm going to make today is choose what you're going to be angry about. Don't let anger drive your brain system, your emotional system, and your decision-making system. I had a patient who had to find her anger about the abuse that she experienced as a child, and when she did, she was livid, didn't know what to do with it. She came across the novel idea of going to garage sales, purchasing china. She preferred large plates. Inexpensive. She would spend a couple dollars and get a number of plates. She kept them in her garage, and when she was angry, she would go out on her patio and slam them down on the ground, sometimes one, sometimes two. A 3-plate rant was a significant one. Then she would sweep it up and go about her business. It was good for her just to release it. That isn't the case for everybody. Some people, when they release their anger, it just builds and grows and grows. You have to know yourself. Encourage those around you to pay attention to what we're doing with our anger. And if we don't feel we have any over the things we have lost, pardon me, there's that cough, we may need to find it. And how you find it is talking about it and talking with others and seeing if you resonate with this. I find it very amusing and entertaining to read social media these days. I call them rants, R-A-N-T-S. All the rants against the Democrats, the Republicans, heads of government, heads of economic, heads of finance, medical community, rant, rant, rant. And that is one way that people get some of their anger out in ways that are not harmful. They post, they stir people up, they go back and forth, they bicker. Nobody's really being hurt. We have to be very careful with rants that might lead to persecution of a particular people, which this is my belief system is absolutely wrong. So any persecution of American Chinese is absolutely wrong. Any kind of racial prejudice, ethnic prejudice, absolutely wrong. The thing that I find amusing about political rants is they don't directly harm anybody. Sometimes people are actually fairly humorous in what they have to say. And people can actually change their minds in time, depending on how the winds blow politically. So I don't take offense when people are expressing opinions that I don't have. I just find it rather interesting and entertaining. I actually enjoy flipping between the stereotypically Republican news stations and the stereotypically Democratic news stations. I find it kind of entertaining to see how you could have such diverse perspective over situations. And I would encourage you to consider how curiosity and finding out what other people think and feel can help reduce your anger. We know that prejudice is diminished when you really get to know somebody. And so, on one hand, I'm saying, go ahead and rant. It's not going to hurt anybody. On the other hand, I'm saying you don't want to live with anger in your brain all the time. A little bit of anger is fine. Expressing it appropriately is fine. But if you live with anger in your brain all the time, then the same stress hormones that we've talked about in other posts are just stirring up. And you've heard of the type A personality. Those are people that remain angry because the things that they want or expect or believe should happen aren't happening. And so type A personalities are more mission-minded than relationship-minded. They tend to be aggressive personalities. They tend to be very mission-focused, and they want to move things along quickly. I happen to be one of those kinds of people. And so they have to be, if they want to stay healthy and not have heart attacks or strokes or develop other kinds of things that relate to inflammation, they need to learn about what they feel and find appropriate ways to express it and relieve some of this. And one of the most appropriate ways to express it is to find people who are non-judgmental, who are caring, who are empathic. These are themes we're going to talk about for months, who will just listen and let you express and empathize with you. Even if you disagree with somebody, you can empathize with them. You can say, I can see how you feel the way you feel. You know, if I know how you believe and you're just ranting away at something, I can get where you're coming from. I don't need to take offense to it, and I can support you in your rant. And supporting each other is really important. Other ideas that I've had, my patients have taught me, is one woman had evolved from taking her anxieties and she devised a little paper bag configuration, and it was God's pocket. And she would write down her anxieties and she would put it in God's pocket. And this little thing she could carry in her purse and write down little anxieties and put it in God's pocket, a symbol of letting go. When she found her anger, then she needed a different way to express this. So she got a full-size grocery bag and positioned it in a chair and would write down her rants on paper, ball them up, and then throw them as hard as she could into the paper bag. And this gave her some sense of satisfaction, clearly non-destructive. Throwing paper balls into a paper bag isn't going to hurt anybody. But she got a sense of release by writing down her rants and throwing them into a paper bag. And so it's important that we acknowledge what makes us angry. I get very angry about injustice. I get angry about deception. These are two things that I get angry about. But then I have to decide, what do I do with it? And I'm not going to wage war against somebody just because I find what they're doing offensive. If anything, I'm going to try to apply what in Matthew 5 in the Sermon on the Mount, Christ says, love your enemies, bless those that curse you, pray for those who despitefully use you. And so you're going to hear this from me too. If you want to deal with anger directly toward somebody who really has committed an offense, pray for them. The simple prayer is, bless, fill in the blank. Bless John, bless Mary. The next prayer is, show me how to bless John. And you can pray this even if it doesn't feel authentic. You can be obedient and you can pray this prayer and trust that the Lord will use it, as he uses all elements related to his word, to empower you to be a better person. Carrying hate and anger in your heart is bad for you. So that there's a balance here. Can you hear this? So a little bit of frustration or intense anger that we find a way to express, to release, is fine, as long as it's not destructive for you or others. To carry it, to feed it, to dwell on it all the time is just unhealthy. And the people around you will notice it, and if they are brave enough, they'll complain that you're just frustrated all the time, you're irritable all the time. And so everybody's got to figure out, what kind of personality am I? Do I need to find my anger in order to not be bottled up with anxiety? Because anger and anxiety are two sides, I call it two sides of the same coin. What I'm angry about, I'm likely protecting some kind of vulnerability. And my anxieties if I get rid of my anxieties, I may find a deep anger underneath. What they have in common is they are both energizing emotions. They increase blood pressure, they increase muscle tension, they prepare us for fight or flight. You've all heard about this. So under stress, we want to get away or we want to attack. Some of the things you need to pay attention to, and I'm feeling it off and on through this season, is tension in the neck and the shoulders. Why? Take a boxer's stance and feel what's going to move when you are throwing punches, right? It's this part of the body. It's preparing. It's getting ready for the fight. Well, we pay attention to that and figure out, how do I let that go? How do I release that? And stretching, yoga, meditation, running, physical exercise, if you can do something with those muscles, they're going to get some of that energy out and all the biochemical stuff and the tension that goes with it. So anger and anxiety are two sides of the same coin. If you're feeling anxious all the time, not always is anger driving it, but if there is anger, it will increase it. And so pause and think, what might I be angry about? And you can pray this, Lord, show me what I might be frustrated about and carrying and hiding from my awareness. And then once you know what it is, decide what to do with it. I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to cause division, confusion, deception. I will figure out constructive ways to express my anger. So if you are enjoying political rants, go ahead. You're not going to hurt anybody by fussing about this or that. just be very careful that you're not carrying it around all the time. People very close to me who have obsessive tendencies will get obsessively angry. And that is just as harmful as being obsessively depressed or obsessively anxious. We need a break from all the intense emotionality. So you need to figure out your way of letting go, releasing. And the one thing to listen to in your thinking and in your speech, the cues that you are feeling angry are words like should, ought, and must. Shouldn't do that. Ought not do that. Must do this. This is my cheap theology. Only God said, let there be light, and there was light. He gets to declare what is and what isn't. I don't. And so if I am declaring something that isn't going to be, I'm going to be frustrated. You should do this. You shouldn't do that. That's the language of judgment, and judgment then increases our anger. So be aware of what you think and feel. Give each other a lot of grace. I've had to accept a long time ago that people get to live as crazy a life as they want to, from my value system. They don't see it that way, and I just have to accept that. I have friends and family that make decisions. I think that's not a good decision, given my perspective in my life and my values. So mutual respect and honor is earned by people in positions in your life. We love people positionally. Even if my wife says or does things that I absolutely disagree with, disapprove of, I love her. I will not harm her. And if I'm in my right mind, I will guard my speech so that I'm not harming her, treating her with contempt, and that sort of thing. But these are things we have to work on. We are naturally born into a position of self-preservation, self-love, self-care, and so we have to learn to be caring and giving and even sacrificing for each other, even when we don't really believe that the cause is just. I was a youth leader years and years ago, and a homeless man came into, I don't know how he got into the church, but he got in and he began asking me for money. And I had a decision to make, and my goal was to get him out of there as quick as possible. And I gave him $10 and sent him on his way. And then we had an interesting conversation about that decision with my teenagers. And I explained to them, I felt the quickest way to be able to continue our mission was to do something I don't believe in the moment. And even though I felt angry that someone had come in, and I had no idea who this person was, whether their need was legitimate or not, and I'm pretty careful about checking things out, I thought the most expedient approach was to just give him $10, ask him to leave. We locked the door behind him, and we carried on with our mission. So other choices would have been to argue with him or waste time and energy dealing with that. There are times you just need to figure out what's the most expedient way to get through something and then move on, if it doesn't cost too much. And I didn't feel that it cost me too much to do that. So be aware of what you feel. Listen, and here's where, knowing self, knowing others, knowing God, listen to other people's comments that love you and know you. How do I appear to be doing? Do I appear to be managing things okay? And then listen if they say, well, I'm seeing this, this, and this. And then the same thing with God. Prayerfully ask God, reveal to me how I should be in these very difficult times. When should I weep with those who weep? When should I get angry? And sometimes we should get angry. And what do you want me to do with it? We don't want to carry it. We don't want to lay it on other people. We don't want to create harm. And we go to Ephesians 4. Each one put away lying, speak truth. And this is a loaded phrase. Put away lying, speak truth. What is truth? Well, you have to know what truth is to speak it. And a lot of people's opinions are not necessarily truth. They're their opinions. So each one put away lying, speak truth. Be angry, but don't sin. So there's no prohibition about experiencing the emotion of anger, but there is a prohibition about sin. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Don't carry that on and on and on. Don't let your mind be full of anger all the time. And don't give the devil a foothold. Your health is an area that's very precious, and that's a huge topic these days. Your mental health is hugely precious. So as you're dealing with the losses, the frustrations, the wishes, the unmet dreams that will occur during this season, be aware that anger is a normal part of the process. I have very good friends, and several of them I will call periodically and say, do you have time for a whine? I want to whine a little bit. And usually that whine is anger. And so they listen, and we're humorous with each other as we do this sort of thing. I've had a very stressful year. This past 2 going on 2 years. Past 2 years, there have been more external stresses in my life than any time previously. And I believe God helped me go through some moderately difficult times in which I had very strong emotional reactions and learn from that so that when the stuff really hit me, I'm okay. And so in spite of all the stuff going on, I'm sleeping better than I have in my entire adult life. I check my blood pressure every day because that can be a marker for many people that the anger is building up. I'm doing fine. I hope you're doing fine too. Feel free to comment. Feel free to share your experiences and suggestions about how you deal with anger constructively. And this group is for everybody. And I look forward to hearing from you about the topic of anger as we move forward through this very challenging time. Thanks for joining.